in a world awash in uncertainty.
That makes me
Are you
so
triggered?
I am very triggered.
I almost said Bryan Adams.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Bryan
You can thank
Adams.
Bryan Adams, too.
Straight
I
from
get
the
it.
heart.
And we're gonna take it to the McMahons.
But Sinbad apparently never made a Shazam movie.
What?
Your anus.
I just couldn't notice.
Two brave heroes take on all things action.
Hi guys, welcome to another great edition of All Things Action Video Cast. I'm Aaron, aka Dad, and with me this week to return for week number 2 is my great friend Kyle.
A.K.A. Kyle.
That's right.
A.K.A. Future Raiden.
From
I do a podcast called the Knowledge from the Couch podcast. If you haven't heard it, you should go listen to it. It's about history. I know history's boring. I know most of you out there slept through your history classes in high school and you hated them. I, on the other hand, liked it a lot, so much so that I got a whole degree in it at the University of Nebraska. So,
and you don't regret a single minute of this.
I
right?
regret most of it, but the part of it I don't regret is it giving me enough of a background to make a podcast for free. So, if you like free history and you like to hear my voice, you can go listen to my podcast, and we'll talk more about it at the end of the show. But that's where you may know the dulcet tones from.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in the last, when you were talking about it in the last episode, we really glossed over this, but you actually had someone come up to you at work and say, "Are you on a do you do a podcast?"
Yeah.
So like, did they hear you, or did they just kind of infer like, "Oh, this guy has a really awesome voice. I wonder if he does a podcast."
You know what? It's really tough for me to say because I didn't ask her because it was a situation where.
Because you were freaking floored, I'm
Well,
sure.
I was
You're
first. I was like,
"How the hell?"
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I'm a registered nurse. That's my career. That's my day and night job because I do both. And so this was a particular night shift. And during the night shift, they open the cafeteria for like 2 hours overnight for the night shift workers to come and get their food and stuff. So it's like 1 in the morning, and I'm going to get lunch.
Right.
1 in the morning lunch for a night shifter.
Yeah.
And I go get the food that I'm going to get, and I go to the cashier, and this is who had stopped me. So I'm ready to pay, and she's like, "Do you do a podcast?" And I don't know this girl. I can tell you what she looks like in my head. I don't know her name. I should have been like, "Hey, who are you?" I don't know.
You never saw her again afterwards.
Yeah, well, I actually see her now on night shifts there, and it's always like, "Oh, you're the one who recognized me." But it was strange because I was like, "Oh, hey, that was." She's like, "Do you have a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I don't know if like word got around that I was the weirdo nurse that does a podcast, or if she recognized my voice or whatever, but. Something along those lines, she was like, "Yeah, I heard your thing," and I was like listening to something on my road trip, and I pull up Harlem Hellfighters. I'm like, "That is from my podcast." So you actually did listen to my show. Like that was one of the better episodes too. I was happy that she got that one.
It was a deep cut too. Like
funny enough, it's a deep cut, but it's also one of the top 4.
Is it?
When I did that was number 4
that's true.
of
that's
those.
True, yeah.
So that one got traction from people. Must have been searching for that particular story or whatever. More often than not. And so she said that, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." So. Like I kind of probably mentioned at the end of the other episode that we did, it kind of feels like shouting into the void sometimes when you go, "Oh shit, I'm just doing this show and who's listening?" I mean, is it only me? Am I the only one listening to myself? And you see downloads take place. Obviously that's not true, but at the same time you're just like, does anybody give a shit about what I say?
Right.
And then you randomly meet somebody in the street, more or less. You meet somebody who you don't know and they're like, "Yeah, I heard your show." I'm like, Jesus, okay. So, I guess you could say I'm kind of a big fucking deal, man. Some rando recognized
Or it was
me.
just happenstance.
It was probably more.
Honestly,
just
I mean that is pretty awesome. You know? And
not too bad.
The funny thing is that with medium like this, shows on Facebook or podcasts out there. The likelihood is it's actually being consumed by people who are not even remotely close to you, and so you'll never get to
you'll never interact with the people. Yeah, because I'll see downloads on my thing from everywhere. I have downloads from France. I have downloads from Australia. I have downloads from Japan. I have downloads from Argentina. I have downloads from everywhere.
Yeah,
I'll never meet those people. I'll never see who they are, but I know that maybe it's random bots downloading my podcast, and congratulations AI.
And
hope
thank
you enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
thank you for downloading. Please
Because that
please be a patron of my Patreon robot.
That gives you a reason to live, right?
Exactly, man. Somebody's doing this. So it shows you just that somebody is consuming your content at least a little bit. And I only attribute that to the fact that I think for about the most amateur show that you'll ever hear, or at least know of, because it's just me recording with a $70 mic and a $50 interface that, I've kind of put the pieces together over time, that it sounds reasonably professionally done for what it is.
Absolutely.
So I feel like I'm shooting above my pay grade with the quality of the thing. It's not going to be as high quality as like a real studio using $700 mics and this, that, and the other thing, and using audio editors who do it for a living.
Right.
It'll never be that because it's a hobby of mine more than anything. But I feel like the reason that it does gain some traction and why I do have like 15 or 16 5-star reviews, I think, on iTunes now, which is I'm not bragging or anything. I have 15 reviews. But it's something, and I feel like most of those reviews say, it's interesting, the quality is good, I'm floored to find something that is obscure like this that sounds decent, because sometimes you just don't find that quality, and I think it's just a matter of the time and the effort that you put into it, and I'm hoping that when people listen to it, that's what they kind of get out of it is, hey, not only is this something interesting content-wise for me, but I also don't hate myself for listening to it. Like, it sounds good. It sounds nice. Yeah. It sounds reasonable. I don't feel like I'm, chalkboard nails.
Well, and that's what's kind of funny is, I do listen, I guess you could call it the Joe Rogan tree, and it starts with Rogan and it kind of branches out to people. Yeah. And I remember
Joey Diaz and Bert Kreischer and others.
The best case in point is Eddie Bravo was on one of the shows one time.
He's on a lot of the shows, I feel like.
But this particular one, he was talking about how he's got a podcast about rock music, and I'm like, oh shit, Eddie Bravo and rock music? This is probably awesome. I go there and I download.
Was it crappy?
It was terrible. It was the production was horrible.
It was obviously made by a guy who was just
rambling.
High as shit.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so like you get people who say, oh well, I do this, and it, it's like, well, that's great, but that's like saying I brush my teeth with a toothpick,
or I brush my teeth, therefore I'm a dentist.
Yeah, it's a big exaggeration. You think a guy like Eddie Bravo, he probably, I'm sure he's not a multi-millionaire by any means, but like
neither am I.
The guy does well,
he does well enough.
It's like, take a little bit of that money, buy a little bit of equipment, see what works, see what doesn't work.
You got money, spend $1,000. $1,000 is a great budget. If I had $1,000, I would sound like a studio show. Take $1,000, buy a desk, buy a really high quality mic, a PC that can run a decent software, and you will have a great sounding show. In fact, spend $2,000 and have somebody else do it for you. You don't have to dick around with anything. Right. Spend $1,000, $2,000. He could do that and he wouldn't blink at it. You know, with all the money he makes from 10th Planet, among other things.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's probably a thing because Joe's has done thousands of episodes now. He's done so much podcasting; it's outrageous. And Eddie's on a lot of them. So probably over the time that he spends being on the mic, doing the stuff with Joe, he's buddies with Joe Rogan. He probably thinks, I'm a pretty good podcaster. I could do this too.
His show has gotten better, I will say.
Good.
I think Rogan pulled him off to the side and was your show is whack. Get it together or don't do it at all kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just a case in point where you do get people who are celebrities or well known, and you think like audio, it's not tricky. It's about like having good quality sound, and that's basically it. The other part of it is like have something good to talk about.
Yep.
And it kind of sells itself. And it's like, how on earth do you screw this up so bad? But it's just like everything. Not everybody's a great cook. Not everybody can do dishes. Not everybody can fold clothes. Not everybody's a valedictorian. So it's unfortunate, but. The fact that, I guess circling back, the fact that you're able to do this on a next to nothing budget where you're actually, we were talking about this earlier, you're actually at a deficit right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a huge one by any means.
I made no real money doing the show, for sure.
Like these two shows are labors of love kind of thing. It's like, if I were in this for the money, I would have shut down after number one.
Yeah.
You know, because I've had to, with the video stuff behind the scenes, it takes an awful lot of memory to hold all of this stuff, and it takes a lot of time to sit there and import it and then export it and compress it down and get it to look clean. And so it's one of those things where it's like, at some point it would be great if someone came, the magical, video cast fairy came down and was like, hey, I've got $1,000 for you. Why don't you buy some mics? Why don't you, get another memory, external hard drive or something like that? But that's not going to happen for a long, long time. And I'm completely fine with that. But I will say, I think it's a great approach that you started a Patreon. So talk a little bit about the Patreon and all that stuff, just so people know if they do want to contribute.
So so Patreon, if you're not aware, Patreon is a platform. I wouldn't call it a social media platform, but it kind of operates in that way a little bit, where it's at patreon.com, and what it does is it allows creators and those who consume the creators' content to come together, and those people basically help donate some money to the creator for whatever benefit that is. You'll see all kinds of Patreons. There are a lot of podcasts out there that have Patreons. There are a lot of videocast series and YouTubers that do Patreons. There are bands that do Patreons. There are everything that you can think of where somebody wants to make whatever amount of money for their work. There's a Patreon out there that covers it. And what it does is it allows you to basically set up a system where your patrons or your followers or whomever can donate money either at a one-time thing or like a monthly sort of level, and Patreon does it in tier form. So it's like, here's the $1 tier,
right?
And you can make your own tiers. Like I made 4 tiers for mine, but you can make 100 tiers if you want, like 1, 2, whatever. It's kind of like Kickstarter in the same way, where a Kickstarter will have a product and say, oh, if you donate $50 to us, you get the product plus this. If you donate $100 to us, you get the product and this and this and this, and so on and so forth. Patreon is like, if you donate, so the way I made mine is if you donate $1 a month to my Patreon, I will thank you on the website and the show, and I'll be eternally grateful. It's $1. It's no money.
Right.
You basically would be out $12 a year to help my show out. And I think that's a reasonable thing to ask of people who consume the content. I've made, 50, 60 hours of podcasts now that, it's free. I'm never going to charge for the show. Some podcast creators will actually use their Patreon to have exclusive episodes, say like the free version of the show. Then if you're a patron, you'll get like
first 10 minutes or
you'll get like the early, you'll get it like a week early,
or
you'll get shows that never go to public. You'll just get whatever. That's usually reserved for way more popular artists that like have tons of demand. It's just like, these people, like Joe Rogan could probably do something like that, but
tell them Steve Dave,
stuff like that. Yep,
those guys have it, and
exactly right.
They don't know how to use it right.
I guess it is one of those things, but so like I have like $1 a month, and then like I do like a $5 a month, where it's like, oh, I'll do the same thing that I did for the $1 tier, plus I'll make you like a magnet, like something stupid like that, and it goes on and on to however much money you'd like to donate per month. I have done 2 full seasons of my show, so like 40 some plus episodes, without having a Patreon or any of that stuff, because I just kind of did it for doing it. But I figure if I'm just going to continue doing it, it would be nice, here and there to gain a couple bucks a month just to put towards like, paying the fee to host the show on a server or this, that, and the other thing. Because there's just little dinky nickel and dime shit that just like you pay for.
Well,
there's the one-time fee stuff, like you buy a mic and it's bought. You buy an interface and it's bought.
Right.
But you pay monthly for like a domain, or you pay monthly for the hosting of the show. This, that, and the other thing. Those things don't. You don't just pay once and you're done. So,
speaking of, if you do shirts, you need to put this, that, and the other thing.
This, that, and the have I said it 58 times already? The beers help me or don't help me speak more eloquently.
I was just gonna say that's the one thing that I notice, especially in like the season 3. Is that's like your go-to.
Have I started saying that a lot more?
This, that, and the other thing. It's like, all right, we got this.
Instead of saying like or this or this, that, or the other.
And that's the thing is, there's nothing wrong with filler. A lot of people use curse words as filler and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm kind of diverting from the Patreon.
That's what Patreon is, by the way. That's all the story is. There's no extra about it. That's what it is.
But I think that it's important that people know that it's out there, number one. Kyle has a podcast.
Yeah,
right?
Patreon.com/Kyle has a podcast.
And just to put it into perspective, for anybody who consumes anything that is free out there, your bargain basement price right now is $1 per month. That's $12 a year.
Yep.
How much do you suppose you spend on
literally anything?
A cup of coffee in a day? You know, like,
or anything that you can think of.
So,
just people, I mean, most people just throw money at dumb shit.
Yeah.
And it's more than $1. I mean, you and I probably throw just $5, $10, $15 at something stupid because it just is. Because, you know, I make more than that in an hour, so I can just give that away. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing, too. It's like sitting there thinking, like, there's been times where we've rented Redbox movies or something.
Yeah,
we'll get way too many. We'll never be able to get to them all in one night.
Yep, and that money's
so
just gone.
I just
you
wasted
threw that money away. Yep.
And it's like, well, shit. $12 doesn't seem like very much at all. $5 a month doesn't seem like that much. I went to Starbucks a couple of days ago and got 4 drinks, and I think the woman said like
$25, $30,
$19 or something like that. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm going to be done with this cup in about 2 minutes. So, you're not asking for a break the bank kind of thing.
No.
Your highest tier is
$20 a month. And if you want to do that, then great. I'll come to your house and thank you personally. I don't put that in the thing, but I probably would because really, would you give me $20 a month to make a show? If you do, that's great. I put it there because maybe somebody will. But the whole thing about my Patreon is I don't need it. I have a good job. I make money at doing that job. That's what I do. This podcast is my hobby. It is like we were talking about a labor of love. It's a thing that I do because I have all this shit in my brain that I want to put out in the ether. And also, and this goes back to your and my history. When I first met you, you went to Wayne State College here in Nebraska, and you were in radio broadcasting. And that's something that I always thought I would be good at, or I thought that would be fun to do because I just love the whole. The audio workstation. I love the microphone. I just love the idea of sitting in a booth and talking. And then I listened to a lot of talk radio when we worked together at Target. And it gets into your ear, and it just never seems to go away. So this is almost more of a hobby for me to get out that nervous energy and to do probably the best I'll ever do when it comes to that sort of fake dream of me going, I'd like to work in radio. Well, I'm not ever gonna work in radio. I'm never gonna do it. Maybe, but probably not. But this is a way I can sort of do that and at the same time put out whatever I want to do.
You have full control.
Yeah, I can. I can talk about whatever I want. I get to stand in front of them. I get to sit in front of Mike, talk, record it, edit it, do all the cool shit that I think is fun, and put out a full blown show. And that's because when I had met you and you had talked about that, I thought that was super fucking cool. I'm surprised that you didn't pursue that further. It just must have been the fact that there are no fucking jobs. It was
at a really weird time because I graduated high school in 1999, and right about then there was something called XM radio, Sirius satellite radio,
Sirius and XM. They were separate companies at one point,
and so it was one of those things where nobody knew what radio was going to be in the next 10 years.
Yep.
And then the funniest part is that things like Pandora and Spotify came along.
Yep.
And I mean, XM and Sirius, whatever they call it now, I think it's just
Sirius XM. I think they just put the two companies came together. Yeah.
That thing's struggling right now to even stay alive. I think the only reason why it is because they locked into really long-term contracts with really big-name people like Howard Stern and stuff like that. And so there is a reason to go to that if you want to consume Howard Stern's radio, broadcasts and stuff like that. But I could see once Stern's off there and some of the other big-name people, that's probably going to go away because, number one, podcasting has gotten
it's gotten huge.
So good that now everybody has one.
Yeah, podcasts aren't some weird nerdy thing that your one friend's like, what's a podcast? What are you doing? Literally everybody you out there, I'm looking at you personally, you probably listen to podcasts or multitude of them. If you'd like to add mine to your rotation, I would be very happy about it.
That's right.
But everybody doesn't now because everybody's got a show because there are shows for literally everybody. There are true crime shows, history podcasts. All the comedians do a podcast.
Yep.
Fucking, there are like 20 million Dungeons and Dragons podcasts. If you're a total nerd, you want to hear guys play D&D in your ear. There is literally anything that you can think of that you have an interest in, somebody's doing a podcast about. And it's the reason it's such a good medium is because it's on the internet.
Yep.
You can get it anywhere.
Yep.
Satellite radio is satellite. So if you've ever had satellite TV, you'll know it's reasonably reliable most of the time. Sometimes you can't get a satellite signal. It's the exact same with satellite radio.
Yep.
You know, if you're in the middle of goddamn nowhere, then that's probably might be your only option. But for the most part, I mean, we had my wife's car had satellite radio for like 3 months when we got it. And we drive around downtown Lincoln, and it would just cut out. I'm like, what the hell?
I think that's
in the middle of a metro area.
I think that's the irony is that the places that are the most populous are actually the ones that have the hardest time with those kind of products because of the way that the structures are built.
Yep.
And so it is almost like you were saying, being out in bumfuck Egypt is probably easier to get, satellite radio than someplace else. But, I think that it's just nice to see. And so kind of going back to the original thing of, back in 1999.
Yeah.
It was different. I was being trained on analog controls. By the time I graduated, just 4 years
digital.
later, we were learning digital.
Yep.
And so it was one of those things where you
got caught in the middle of a weird revolution, as technology changes.
I think that's the thing, kind of like with the music today, is I hear a lot of musicians talk about how they're worried that the youth of today, because things are so much easier to get a hold of and to do, they don't learn to respect the old ways, and they don't learn to respect the old artists, and they don't know who the old artists are. And that's the kind of thing, like, when I do come and do the podcast with you, I think I would like us to talk about Marconi and like the inventors of radio and the guys who figured out radio waves.
We're figuring out what we're going to talk about
right now. because it's one of those things where it's like, as a podcaster, do you have to know about where radio started? No. But you should respect it, because without that, none of this happens. And there's so many pivotal people who had such a big role in that. And I mean, just like anything, like with medicine, it starts out as we want to find a totally different thing, and they find out that the thing that they found has nothing to do with it, but hey, it works for this. And radio was definitely like that. They were looking for something completely different, and they wound up finding a way to communicate from long distances over the air. Over the air broadcasting. Think about that. Like
no wires, just transmit.
Nothing.
And the signal comes in. And you can hear whatever is happening.
And nowadays,
pretty amazing.
And nowadays we take it for granted. You know, I mean, everything's over the air.
But it's the other reason why terrestrial radio may never truly die is because it is so easily accessible and really pretty cheap to make these days.
Super
relatively.
Cheap,
Like, it's cheaper than satellite radio to make, because satellite radio is recorded in the same type of studio radio is, but you have to transmit it to satellite, this and that, and there's the whole licensing thing and the upkeep of the satellites and the broadcasting thing. But radio, I mean, the structure is already there. It's been there for years, and, it's easy. Like, it's easy to just, like, get on a frequency, whether FM or AM, and transmit your ideas. That's, like, the easiest thing. So terrestrial radio will probably never go away. And podcasts may go away at some point, but they are so popular now because of, really, it's probably because of their on-demand nature.
Right.
You can pick one up whenever you want it. You can listen to whatever you want, whenever you want.
To as many as you want. You can stop when you want. You can always pick it back up.
Yep. If you work an 8-hour day, like an office, and you're allowed to do that kind of thing, you could crank up 8 straight hours of podcasting, listen to whatever you want the whole time. You listen to them when you exercise. You can listen to them, little bits and pieces between time. Like, that's the beauty of it, and that's why it's better than satellite radios, because it's not live. So it is, you grab the content you want and just consume it at your own pace. Of course, you're not going to get the fun liveness of radio that you can have, but terrestrial radio has that covered very well. Satellite was the whole thing. Was like, well, if I'm a Howard Stern fan, but I live in Nebraska and Howard Stern transmits from New York City, I can't listen to Stern if I don't want it, but I can on satellite. I mean, I think the niche is so small. That's why it's not doing that well. Because how many people? It's like, well, there's always an affiliate for whatever you want on terrestrial radio that covers pretty much anybody's thing. You know, the national stars will get their affiliates like Jim Rome and others will get their affiliates in every market.
We used to listen to Rome religiously, and it was one of those things where even he'd be like, well, we're switching over to Fox, we're switching over to such and such, and it's like there was never any drop off. It was always like, well, if Jim Rome is going to be on radio, we're going to have him, and so they figured out a way to do it. So, well, man, I mean, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about some sort of like action pop culture here,
Yeah, it's fun to talk about the bits and pieces and and the innards of what the two of us are doing. And I'm sure whenever the podcast comes out that we do it at my place, it'll be a similar thing, but it'll just be on mic without seeing the two of us. But it's fun to talk about like the process, the behind the scenes, the guts of it is fun to talk about.
Most people don't know how this all works, know, and for the most part, I don't know how it all works. So I'm always
still learning
curious,
too.
And at some point, I could see this format working better as a podcast, just because you could talk about this stuff almost daily if you wanted to. And it doesn't take, with the history stuff, like we've said, you really have to dig in. You have to do your research. It's going to take you a little while to get all the information together that you want.
Yep, I can't improv a show all that well.
And that's the thing.
Have a little structure.
When you're talking about just current events and shit like that, very easy to just throw something out there, and that's some of the fun things that you get to hear, especially with comedian podcasts. Is they just riff, and
they
it's
just
okay,
riff. They just talk.
Fun.
It's just weird. Yep. And they get so many more listeners than I do.
Exactly. Well,
so let's talk about whatever you want to talk about, man. We can do it.
A couple weeks ago,
we ever do the namesake of your videocast justice. We ever talk about something on brand.
A couple weeks ago, Raiden and I had a conversation about The Walking Dead. Raiden couldn't have a conversation because number one, he doesn't watch it.
You had a conversation at him about it.
and I kind of went deep about it.
I remember seeing that, and I thought that would be something that we could talk about for sure. So, okay, good. Yeah.
So I guess you're a fan of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, less so now than I used to be, but I think that's a pretty common sentiment.
You're a watcher of The Walking Dead.
I am current. Well, I think they just started their season. I want to say was it last week or are they starting this week? So I haven't seen that one yet, but I am caught up basically to this point.
So how about Fear the Walking Dead?
Fear I gave up very early on.
I did too. So we're both in the same boat. So that's something that I think we can definitely galvanize together on, is that Fear the Walking Dead, unfortunately, in my opinion, is a big steamy pile of shit. And it has been since the beginning. I think for me, one of the biggest problems that I had with Fear the Walking Dead was initially I could not relate to the family that was on there. And I think the reason why certain people can is because we all come from different kinds of families.
From backgrounds,
different backgrounds, stuff like that. The reason why The Walking Dead worked for me was because of the family structure that was in place with Rick Grimes. Hardworking guy. He loves his family. He loves his wife. Loves his kids. Loves his kid. Will do anything for him. And then Fear the Walking Dead comes in, and the very first shot is
drug
addict in a hostel or in
church or something.
He's squatting something like
somewhere.
That. And to me, that just really kind of put me off right away. It was like,
and not because it's a bad thing, but just because you don't relate
I don't relate
as well.
Exactly. I didn't grow up in that situation. I mean, if you did and you look back on that fondly, then great. But for me, it wasn't. But I guess the thing that I guess we'll touch on here is I want your thoughts on your feelings towards, I guess, the landslide that happened with The Walking Dead going into this season 9. Kind of what were your thoughts when they started killing off characters that didn't seem like they needed to be killed off.
Yeah.
And, like, I guess just whatever you feel.
Yeah, man, I can go on a little bit about The Walking Dead and Fear. So, Fear the Walking Dead, at the time it came out, I think the regular Walking Dead was on, maybe it's like 5th season or something like that.
Kind
somewhere around there. Yeah, right about the peak of that show. Mm-hmm. And, I gave it a shot because that was one of the things where it was like, my wife and I first started watching The Walking Dead. It was on Netflix. It still is on Netflix if you've never seen it and you want to see it. We jumped into it on TV, I think right at the tail end of the 2nd season, maybe into the beginning of the 3rd season on TV. So we've been watching for most of the run.
Yeah.
And it became very popular on Netflix because, like, the first season of The Walking Dead is amazing. It is some of the best gritty, zombie, scary TV that is very well put together. That is the reason why the show became so popular, because that first season was so well done and so weird. It was like, Jesus. So we popped into it. You go through the 2nd season, the 3rd season. They had the ups and downs, but for the most part, it stayed among the same thing. You were always very fearful of the walkers. You were always very fearful of, the people. It was a very tense situation all the time. But it had not yet, in my opinion, devolved into the arcade shooter that it has become. And so, into the 5th season or so, Fear the Walking Dead comes out, and we go, okay, we'll just give it a shot. We'll see what this is all about, just to see somebody else's take. It's The Walking Dead set in L.A., so the other side of the country, because The Walking Dead set in, like, Georgia and Virginia and stuff. So, watched it, tried to get to the first season, pretty much got through it, and just said, this show is just not that good. It just doesn't seem well put together. It seems bland. It just doesn't seem inspired by any means. So we watched the first season. Then we got into the second one, and we had like 4 or 5 recorded on the TV, and we just like watched the first or second episode and said, "This is dumb. We're just not going to watch this."
You guys got way further than I did.
Yeah, like we watched. We gritted through the whole first season. And then got in the second going, okay, maybe something cool is going to happen. And then just it never did. And we're like, fuck this show. This is just dumb. Why waste our time watching this stupid thing? Because all it was really made for was to basically say, The Walking Dead has 16 episodes. We want to just add another like 8 to 12 during off time to give the fans their fill, their shot of the show that had become the most popular cable show, on TV. And it used to be destination TV for us. Like, for a while, we watched it live on Sunday, and it was like, we are going to tune in at the time, watch the show as it happened, and then my wife and I also watched, Talking Dead afterwards. So it was just, it was one of those things where it became like a Sunday type of ritual. And then the show just kind of evolved into this different thing, and I think it's partially because it's on AMC. AMC's basic cable. You can get away with stuff on basic cable, but your budget's never going to be massive. I mean, they have a pretty big budget for a basic cable show, but it's no Game of Thrones budget. This is no HBO, movie budget. This is basic cable. And just, I think, in my opinion, I like the comic okay. I haven't read all of it, but I've read a decent chunk of the first part. And I think Kirkman had a really good idea on his hands when he started. And I think the fact that he doesn't know how it's going to end, at least he claims to, or says he wants to just kind of do it perpetually, or that the idea that, whatever caused the zombie outbreak he's never going to reveal or doesn't know, or whatever it is, makes me mad, because I like the whole, like, there should be some reason that this happened.
Right.
You can't go into an apocalypse and be like, what happened? I don't know. There's zombies now. It worked in the first and second season because it's like you are so focused in on this rural Georgian family in the middle of, they go into Atlanta, but then they go back out of the city.
They're just trying to survive.
And it's very, like, focused in, and it's like, okay, I get this whole thing. It's very, like, scary. They're going to houses. It's spooky. There's zombies everywhere. Bad stuff happens randomly to characters. They were the first, besides Game of Thrones, killing off people with no regard
no one's safe,
to main character status, and it's like, okay, that's great. Like, nobody's safe. We're all like, oh, we're attached to the characters and we don't want them to die. What's going to happen? And then just through the evolution of it, it's like, oh, well, of course, The Walking Dead doesn't just refer to the zombies. It also refers to the people, because when they die, they become zombies or whatever.
Right.
And it just becomes this world where it's like, well, the logical point is you want to try to rebuild civilization, and the spookiness and the tension of not only those type of like tribalism in people, but the walkers in general just kind of fades to the background. Like the walkers basically don't exist anymore. Like they do, but they're just like that's a thing that's over here.
Well, yeah.
But now we just have all compiled 1 billion pounds of ammunition, and we're just fucking shooting each other and killing each other. And it just is this different thing. The show has changed a great deal since the first season, and it just seems cheaper to me. It just seems like flimsier to me. I'm not invested in a lot of the new characters at all, despite them being on screen for seasons at a time. I'm like, I don't care about this person.
Right.
Like, I don't care about any of these people, even though I know they're comic characters too. I'm just like, I don't give a shit about these people. And, like, you know, spoiler alert, Carl, Rick's son, played by Chandler Riggs, is killed or dies in the last season. And that was the thing for me. I was just like, I don't get this move. Because in my mind, The Walking Dead was the story of Rick and Carl. Like, they are father and son. The Walking Dead is about these two. Rick should die eventually. And I always kind of figured that was going to happen. And then Carl takes up the mantle and becomes the new Rick.
In the comic books, Rick is still alive, but after a certain amount of time, and especially it happens after they capture Negan in the comic.
Yeah.
It pivots hard.
Yeah.
And it becomes about Carl becoming a man.
Yeah.
And
because he's growing up in this weird apocalypse world. You know?
And the thing is like in the comic books, Rick loses his hand.
Yep.
And I know that what's his name has said that Kirkman has said that he really regrets having done that in the comic.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
beer.
Yep. At the same time, it actually is a good move because Rick loses his hand. Yep. And you're like, oh shit, this guy is going to get infected by this thing. It's not a good thing. And he comes out okay.
Yep.
And then Kirkman wrote for Carl. Carl gets shot in the eye. And you're like,
which did translate in the show.
Yeah, and it did. And you're like,
yeah, did he die?
My God.
Is he gonna die?
He's gonna die.
Yeah.
And instead he comes back and it's like, nope. And so he was able to theoretically one up his father.
Yep.
And so there's this power struggle where Rick's like, you can't leave. I need you here. I need you to take care of these people. And he's like, no, I gotta leave. I gotta be my own man. I gotta learn a trade. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And that's what disappointed me so much about the direction that they decided to go. Now I understand Chandler Riggs was worried about getting typecast. And so is Andrew Lincoln. Like, I get it. Everybody who's watched MASH before always thinks of Alan Alda as Hawkeye Pierce, Benjamin Pierce. Yep. And he's always going to be. Alan Alda is an amazing actor.
Yeah, he got plenty of jobs afterward.
So many other things.
Yep.
But
he's Hawkeye.
That's who he is.
That's who he is. Yep.
And even now, I was watching something just a couple of days ago, and it was about Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yep.
And they made the point that he will always and forever be remembered for that particular thing, even though he did all sorts of other movies. Because he was so iconic in that role, he will always and forever be tied to that, and that's all that anybody's ever going to remember for is oh, you remember Heath Ledger? Yeah, the Joker.
Yeah, the Joker.
Shit, he was awesome. I wish he wouldn't have died. And so I get it, but at the same time, when they did that, they really hamstrung themselves as far as where they could go creatively. And it's I mean, I mentioned it that I had read an article, and it's been corroborated now from several people that Andrew Lincoln basically said, well, now that this storyline's out there, I really don't see any reason for me to stick around. And so he's bowing out after this season, and it sounds like he will die.
Yep,
they're not bringing Rick back. He's he's not doing a Lenny James thing, and he's not like going someplace else. He's
so they can kill off a whole cast in that show and just put. That's a whole other thing about fear that makes it garbage too.
It's one of those things where it's like, it really feels like a boat out on an ocean without a captain and
without direction,
without a wheel, you know, and without an oar, you know, like where is this thing going? Because now it just seems like it's like it's in one regard. It's great for Norman Reedus. I think Norman Reedus is for a long time coming. He has needed something to show, like, hey, I am a great actor.
Yeah, I
can lead stuff, you know, and talk about a character who he's not part of. He's the one guy who's
he's a made up character for TV.
He's a made up TV character, and he's translated better than anybody else. And so,
surprised Kirkman hasn't written a similar Daryl Dixon character into the comic just because of the popularity of the show.
But that's the thing is right around the height of the show starting, he was in that Negan All Out War, and Dwight was Daryl Dixon.
Yep.
He was.
Yep.
I mean, Dwight in
for
the
all
comic
intents and
book
purposes
is Daryl Dixon because after he denounces Negan, he becomes Rick's right hand man.
Guy.
And so it's like, oh well, shit, that's where it's at, you know. And he even has like the vest and everything. He's that guy. And so it's one of those things where I think he realized at that point this would be a good kind of guy to have right away. Yeah. You know.
I think a lot of that conflict that made the early seasons good was from those actors, and you don't find that good narrative conflict anymore. And I think that's one of the problems that is their lack of oar, so to speak. You had Shane and Rick early on, kind of like brothers. You know, they worked together. They were basically brothers anyhow. Yep. And then the whole tension of, Shane being with his wife because they didn't know that Rick wasn't dead.
Right.
And Judas' parentage aside, it was like these guys are brothers. They had to kind of do the power struggle. Like, am I the leader? Are you the leader? Are we both the leader? Here's my idea. Here's your idea. And, eventually, and eventually Shane is killed. It's the same with Daryl and Merle, it was like two both made up characters and for the TV show, but they had the same dynamic. It was like, you're the older brother. They're both, kind of like addicts and like kind of country bumpkins in Georgia. That's kind of what their deal is. And it's like Merle's this way. Daryl's kind of like him, but not exactly like him. How does their relationship work too in the fabric of this particular world? And that was a really good narrative to play off as well. And that sort of stuff is just gone. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. There you don't get that sense from any character now.
Well,
like I don't give a shit enough about who's left.
And I think that's where they went wrong with Fear the Walking Dead. Is if they wanted to do a spin-off, they had it right there. Daryl and Merle Dixon. Yep. That's what you want to. That's the story that everybody would want to see. And Michael Rooker. Yeah. I mean, you talk about a guy who, number one, he doesn't age at all. So you don't have to worry about him looking older, and so that's the thing. It's like, why if you're going to do Fear the Walking Dead and you're going to do an origin story, start with the Dixons. Oh my God.
Yeah. Because then you can show what their life is like before.
And they only talked about little bits and pieces, and you're like, this sounds
interesting tragic and weird.
As hell.
Yeah.
This would be perfect.
Yep.
Watch these two brothers who sound like they came from the worst background in the world come together.
How they made their way.
Come together as the world's falling apart.
Yep.
I'm kind of getting goosebumps just thinking about that. Like, why?
Because you're sad about lost potential because it's just never going to happen now. It's unfortunate.
They missed the mark.
That boat is gone.
Yeah.
So I am very unexcited. I mean, I still record it. I'll still watch it because it's at the point where it was easy for me to give up Fear because I didn't care at all. I was like, I don't care what happens.
Did you watch the crossover?
I watched Morgan's last episode on Walking Dead, but I never watched what happened.
But you shut off?
Yeah, I didn't give a shit after that. I was I hope something good happens for Morgan.
So that was
Goodbye.
the thing. I gave it the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. I watched it. And I went.
You're like, God damn it.
I went, oh
shit.
Afterwards, Fran's like, how was it? I'm like,
it's like delete.
It was Fear the Walking Dead.
Yep.
I'm like,
yep.
It makes no goddamn sense.
It's stupid.
And because I hadn't been watching, I'd only been hearing about stuff. It was like, and the people from the first season showed up, but now they're a different thing, and you got some guy who acts like he's some sort of Forrest Gump cowboy on there, and he's walking around with Lenny James. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things, and then apparently, it's a woman trying to film a documentary during the zombie outbreak, but we haven't had any kind of power in forever.
Who's this going to be for?
I just it's one of those things where it's like, you guys, and I think I mentioned when I went on my rant that it's like, use Fear the Walking Dead as a one-off thing. Like make each season about a different group, and then you have the opportunity to either kill them all at the end and start fresh. If you're like, this was kind of a miss for us, let's just kill them off. Great, you never hear about them. But maybe, just maybe, if you have a character that kind of sticks to the wall, they're the one person that comes in, is alive at the end. Yep. And then 3 seasons from now,
you find them again.
Yep. You can come back to that. And that's the problem is, like, with the Fear thing, from what I had heard, pretty much everybody's dead now from the original cast.
I think that's what I heard as well. And I'm just like, okay, I'm glad I'm not watching that thing, because that sounds dumb as hell.
And that's the thing. It's like Lenny James is not going to be able to save that show.
No.
Number one,
more power to him. He's a good actor and he's a great dude. It's just like, you're just not going to save that show. Yeah. That's all it was for, is because they're trying to save that piece of shit show. And it's like, well, we put a popular character from this on it, maybe that'll save it. Like, probably not, but you can try. Scott Gimple, you piece of shit.
Well, and then timeline stuff too. It doesn't make any sense because somehow, over the course of 6 months, they were able to traverse the entire United States.
Yep.
And I don't know. It didn't make any. It was very illogical in their approach, and taking Lenny James and throwing him over there, and I don't know if you watched Talking Dead the week that they made the announcement that Lenny James was going to be moving. Do you remember?
Yeah, because he was on like satellite or whatever. TV or whatever.
Just looking at his facial expression, did he look like a guy who was excited?
Who was super happy. He was like...
He looked like he...
I don't know.
He was just like, God damn it. Are you kidding me? Like,
you can tell that, especially nowadays, and, say what you want about Chris Hardwick, and he's in his own bag of worms anyhow, but you could tell that when that show began and he started doing this after show, there was so much true... real enthusiasm in him and everybody else. It was like, man, this is the shit.
Yeah.
And it is in the last probably 3 or 4 seasons, it has just been all manufactured.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, who can stay excited about this?
Right.
Week in and week out, it's the same shit over and over again. It's just like, the show needs to, I don't want the show just to get canceled, but I would like there to be a vision to the end that says, here's the direction we're going to take, and this is how the show is going to end, and we're going to bow out. Now, it's not going to go that way, because AMC is going to milk that cow for all it's fucking worth. It's AMC. They've made good TV before that is critically acclaimed. They've made Mad Men, and they made Breaking Bad.
Right.
All these things that are like, oh, these are the fucking shows. AMC is the place to go on basic cable for, like, your TV. And they found that The Walking Dead is so good when it comes to ratings and other things like that people are so into it that they're like, well, fuck, the money is great. We're just going to milk this dumb goddamn thing, which is why Fear exists, because it's an extra thing for those fans. They're just going to milk that thing into the ground until it becomes the worst, stupidest version of itself, until it eventually is canceled, and everybody's going to leave that show with the bitterest, worst taste in their mouth, because it's just going to end like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's just going to kind of end.
Yep.
Everybody's going to be like, what the fuck is this show? It's like, what happened to this show? That's what people are going to say about it. They're not going to say, wow, that show from beginning to end is just this nice little story narrative, and it's great here, and it wraps up great, and we have a story. Ta-da! The end. They're going to be like, what happened?
Right.
What happened to
the
show?
And I think the other thing to kind of bring up too is the next main antagonist of the group is the Whisperers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if
I have no clue about this.
So Whisperers, it's a huge faction of people. And I won't go into detail because I hope that the show actually does it justice.
Yeah.
But here's another case of missed opportunity. And this was what I actually thought Fear the Walking Dead was going to be.
Yeah.
Was going to be the story of the Whisperers.
And then they kind of meet the two together in some way.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, I was like, oh shit, we're gonna like they've captured Negan, and they're going. The crossover event is Lenny James Morgan getting killed by the Whisperers.
Yep, and then you know, here we go.
Yeah,
yep.
It kind of, and you could have used the last 3 seasons,
yep.
the last 2 seasons to kind of get that ready, and instead, it was one of those things where it was just a cash grab instead of being like, we want to build a universe. Because, in my opinion, if you're not doing the Dixons, you're doing the Whisperers. You're doing the story of Alpha, and you're doing the story of Beta, and you're showing like how, like, as one group is trying to evolve society or get it back to where it needs to be, you know, build a civilization.
Yep.
Another group goes from the beginning of society
to just
total degradation,
anarchy, and just ridiculousness. Yep.
Embracing
the chaos.
Yeah. And instead it was something different. But I think that, to me, that was another missed opportunity between those 2 shows to be like, here's the bridge right here.
Yep.
You guys asked for it, you get it, you know. And I think the interesting thing is I heard a lot of people, and it was kind of funny because Joe Rogan talked about that on his podcast when he talks about, you know, it's funny, that guy he has no time for pop culture, but he knows so much
about it.
But like when he was talking to Elon Musk, he said something about Spider-Man in Gotham City, and you know, like, you dumb shit. But he had mentioned, he goes, I stopped watching Fear the Walking Dead when I saw Negan put a baseball bat to Glenn's head, because he goes, it was no longer a zombie show.
It was people killing other people show.
Yeah, and he said, I see that, you know, I there's too many shows like that already, and so I often wonder if, because for me, God, I was reading these comic books way before, like, I got giddy.
Yeah,
I got giddy because I found out that they were making a TV show about something that I actually
you were already into. And you're
was
like,
into.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's like back in the day with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
you know. And so, like, it's always interesting to me to hear perspectives on what a character like Negan is to somebody who had no idea what he was.
Yeah, somebody who wasn't invested in whatever it was going to be.
So, I mean, you said you've read the comics. Did you get all the way up to Negan at that point?
I knew about what had happened, because I think it was a pretty big spoiler. Everybody kind of knew what was going to happen.
Right.
I think, because I got these, like, those anthology album things, like, they're like 1 through 40. So I've gotten through, like, up to, like, maybe the 60 or 70th. And I know it's, like, I think the 100th comic, I think number 100 or near about there is when Negan puts the bat on Glenn.
Right.
And it's just a ridiculous situation in there, too. And it's just like, oh, man, I know what's going. So I knew what was coming. Which, you know, that whole, like, fake Glenn death was just a total just farce in and of itself, you know, the whole dumpster thing. And we all of us who had known that knew that it was a fake out. And it's like, if you're not going to give Glenn the death that he deserves or he should have that's iconic, then I don't know what the hell the show is going to do. And eventually they do get there. But, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. And, you know, I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan a lot. I think he's a badass. And I think that season, for at least the first part, when he was first in it, was pretty decent Walking Dead. Like, it was good. And then it just kind of fell off the wheels like it always eventually does, you know. And I'm just like, well, okay, it's fine. You know, it is what it is. So I guess we'll see. I think they've, if I remember correctly, they've time skipped forward again for the new season. A small ways. I don't know how far.
And that happens in the comics as well. So, I mean...
So that now they can cast a new Judith for the kid.
I hope so.
I'm assuming so they don't want some,
then again, she may be like 7 years old by now.
At this point,
who knows?
And because Rick looks like more clean cut but older, you know, and he'll do whatever he's going to do. But yeah, I don't know. I'll watch it, but I don't have that much interest anymore. It'll be watching because I just want to see how they do whatever, but I won't be like, oh, can't wait to watch this. I'll probably build up 7 on the DVR and be like, I guess we better watch the fucking Walking Dead now and see how it goes. Exactly. So, exactly right.
Damn straight.
Yeah, man.
Well, I see on my my recording device here, my video camera, that we're getting awfully low on battery. So that's probably a good reason to stop.
Yeah.
We're almost to an hour as well. So I think we'll just stop here. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. I know we kind of touched on a whole bunch of weird different things, and then we talked a little bit of Walking Dead. But it's always fun to get with you, man.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody goes and supports you on your Patreon. Kyle has a podcast.
Yep. Patreon.com/Kyle has a podcast.
That's right.
All one word.
Make sure you go and check out the podcast, Knowledge from the Couch podcast.
That's the one.
Every week, Kyle's bringing some new shit. It's great.
Always.
On season 3. And this season 3, unlike Fear the Walking Dead, does not suck. So I strongly suggest you guys go out and listen to that every week. And I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I think that's it. And you'll be on my show soon.
Yeah.
So those who watch this, look forward to that into your ears when that comes out. Otherwise, yeah, this has been fun as usual. As always.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. For All Things Action Videocast, I'm Aaron, a.k.a. Dad. And with me today was Kyle, a.k.a. Kyle, from Knowledge from the Podcast. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Hasta luego!